for all the firefighters that are battling the blazes across the West. Seeing them safely doing their work, being provided the energy to accomplish that. Seeing their families in peace, knowing that their loved ones are safe, even on the front lines. And so it is.
I'd like to ask for the highest and the best for our entire living water community.
And so it is.
And I would like to express and ask for prayers for Pam and her family. This is a very rough time they're going through, and been there, and it's real challenging. And I know that they are all up to the task, and I send my blessings to Dan as well.
And so it is. There are so many families that are experiencing stress in these COVID times. Economic stress, relationship stress, health stress. Seeing all of those that are suffering from this once-in-a-lifetime experience, seeing them engaged in love, engaged in compassion, engaged in open eyes, wide-sightedness. And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests?
Also, one more out there, just for my friend Doug, and he's going through some health issues right now. So, one of the guys unconditional love.
And so it is.
I'd like to ask for prayers for all of our frontline workers who are putting their lives on the line for us every day.
And so it is. Are there any other prayer requests? For all of those prayers unsaid, for all of those needs that seem to be without resolution, for all of those that are not even drawn to prayer but are stressed nonetheless, we hold this planet, this country, this community, in this embrace of God's unconditional love, limitless, except for our lack of calling upon it. And so with this embrace of love encircling this planet, we give thanks. And so it is that together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Well, let's begin with a little uplift. Is the uplift good?
Yes.
Are we good for uplift? All right. I love this guy. Whoops, that didn't happen. There we go. Yeah.
I'm asking you to make a
You're not
donation
going
right
to
now
do
at
that
your
right now.
local
No,
match.
you're not going to
Help
do
us.
that. We're not going to do that.
From the day that we were born, Mom hugged us with warmth, and we grew because we knew we had all your support. From the fams to the friends, your love was medicine, keep giving us the strength to rise when we would sin. And the knowledge that we gained through every single mistake, but you never backed down through this. You taught me faith. Every single one of you, through being you, you do find a way to spread love, truth through me and you. And it's because of you I grew, because of you I flew, because of you I made it through without residue. Because of you we all have a home to come to. You're a blessing to us all. So keep just being you. To my people, yeah, you're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, you're my truth. To my people, yeah, you're everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah, you're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me and help me grow. To my people, yeah, I bow down to your heart of gold. Yeah.
First I think the universe, the infinite, the all. Kaja, Allah, whatever name you call. Then I think the ancestors, yes, the predecessors. The wisdom and the knowledge that they passed, only blessings. Shot the Marcus Garvey, MLK, Malcolm Gandhi. Bob Marley, Michael Jackson, Tupac, they remind me. The power of the pen, the music and the voice. Everything they've done, let me know I have a choice. Now for my people, mom, pop, sister, brother, best friend, acquaintance, lover, co-worker. Even if I don't know you, all the good that you do. Help to see my way through certain space, and sharing all the good
To my people, yeah, you're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, you're my truth. To my people, yeah, you're everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah, you're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me and help me grow. To my people, yeah, I bow down to your heart of gold.
When I close my eyes, I always see learning souls who walk with me. They taught to laugh, they taught to love. You go to hug when push comes to shove. Turn the cheek, forgive, walk away. Tomorrow is another day. And life is short, helping hands to say, a holier than the ones who
To my people, yeah, you're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, you're my truth. To my people, yeah, you're everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah, you're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me and help me grow. To my people, yeah, I bow down to your heart of gold.
He always gets my energy moving. So, time we had a talk. You know, a minister once said that to put together a sermon, all you need is a Bible and a newspaper, but not necessarily in that order. If he were alive today, he would probably say Facebook and Twitter as well. But this is an interesting time, to put it mildly. It seems that every week something comes up. Every day something comes up. And it's a challenge for us to address that up, whatever up is, with peace and equanimity. The most recent challenge for me, well, I don't know, I haven't read the papers this morning, but in March 13th, Breonna Taylor was asleep in her bed. Her boyfriend was with her, and there was a loud noise at the front door. And before they knew it, the door came crashing in. Well, her boyfriend had a gun in the nightstand or somewhere, maybe under a pillow or the mattress, but he had a gun nearby, and when that first person came through the door in plain clothes, he fired a shot. Turns out that was an undercover police team that had, according to a witness, had announced that they were that it was police, open up, or whatever they said, but something to that effect. But one of the policemen started firing through a window that had shades pulled, fired 8 or 10 rounds into the apartment, and that was perhaps in response to the one shot that was fired by the boyfriend. And there was a fusillade of bullets fired. The person who, one of the police officers that first went in the room in the apartment, apparently got shot in the leg, and he responded with 5 or 6 shots. And this other police officer fired through the shaded window indiscriminately. But there were either 5 or 6, I'm not sure, but 5 or 6 bullets found their mark in Breonna Taylor as she was standing in the hallway. Just hearing that gives me an opportunity to feel this righteous indignation. Why is it that we have a society that seems to condone that kind of no-knock raid? Or maybe there was a knock. Apparently there was a knock, but that midnight, nighttime raid with the outcome to be someone is killed, and it's not just someone who was firing at the officers, but it was an innocent person. She was apparently she had been employed as an EMT. I don't know whether she was employed at the time or not, but that's really irrelevant, right? I mean, it is that police action attempting to raid an apartment where they thought that drugs were being sold or being stored. Apparently, Breonna's ex-boyfriend had been arrested in the past, and in fact was arrested this summer for possession of drugs. But the police, of course, felt justified. They wanted to go to surprise the occupants of the apartment, and they didn't want to be met with a a barrage of bullets coming at them, so they knocked down the door and they entered. Breonna Taylor was killed. She apparently lived for a few minutes after she was shot, but died very quickly. The boyfriend who had fired the shot was not injured. And so the question is, and I open this to the floor, how does that situation strike you? I mean, does it feel justified? Does it feel unjustified? If it feels justified, how do you feel? What's your body feel like? Where, in your stomach, in your heart, in your chest, where is the feeling, and how would you describe that feeling? And if you feel that it's unjustified, and there's probably very little middle ground there between feeling justified or unjustified. Maybe there's some occurrence where you feel, well, it is as it is. But how does that strike you?
I've had some thoughts about this whole thing, and you put it very well the way you did it, showing all the sides. I guess the crucial part of this is, was it a knock or a no knock? He was in his home defending his family or whatever. But if the police were in plain clothes, that's the first time I heard that. So, I guess my feelings about it is just perplexity or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Not knowing really which way to go on this, because looking at it fair. What? All the facts are not in. I think there was something about body cameras being the records from that coming out. I don't know. I think there's a lot more that we need to know before we can form a conclusion. Right? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not asking you to be the judge and jury here. I'm just asking you, how does that feel? What is
confused?
Yeah,
confused and perplexed. That was the word I used. Perplexity.
Okay. If I might offer that's a mental state. That is a mental reaction. I'm asking, how does the body feel? Is there an energy, a localized energy somewhere in your body? Often it's in the torso somewhere.
It's in my brain.
But well, maybe it is an energy in the head. But I come back to the question of, how does it feel? Patrick, you've been on the police force. How does it feel to you? You're muted. Let me see if I can unmute you. Okay, I'm not able to oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, so okay. Yeah, it's gut-wrenching. I mean, it's sad that an innocent girl got killed. I can't even imagine how her friends and family feel. Justified or not, that'll come out in the wash, I suppose. But anytime somebody's killed, unjustified as a police officer, I would imagine that police officers should feel horrible if they're shooting through a window they couldn't see through. I hadn't heard that part yet, and that's just, to me, that's unjustified. But it's a knot in my stomach, and it's a sadness in my heart that somebody died that was alive and asleep. I mean, it's just sad. That's how I feel.
There was an email that was written by the policeman that was shot that tried to justified that there was nothing done wrong. I can certainly understand that defensiveness, but I also invite that person to have an opportunity to look at it through different eyes. Anyone else? Any other thoughts that you have about that?
I think gut-wrenching does kind of sum it up. It's pit in your stomach that it's frustrating. You can't do anything about it, but it's just more frustration. And I'd like to add, apparently there were no body cams, and the only one charged was the officer who shot through the window blindly, and he was charged with wanton disregard for human life.
Yeah, wanton endangerment, I think, was the charge. And he was fired because that practice was against police department rules. Well, there is opportunity for each person who hears the story to be affected, and in fact likely would be affected by this experience, by hearing of this experience. And we have these opportunities. I mean, this is not the first time that we might have this kind of opportunity to hear something that has gone on, to gain a felt sense of the circumstance and a felt sense response to the circumstance. And I come back to the felt sense rather than the mental sense. The felt sense is the one that is happening in the body. And that felt sense is a very important thing for us to pay attention to, because it is the felt sense that gives us the visceral response, whatever that visceral response is. And it's not as if we can control that, right? It's maybe you can, maybe, but I can't control it. Let me put it personally: I can't control that visceral response. That visceral response does have an effect on my peace of mind. Interestingly, that it refers to mind again, but I consider mind to be based in the heart, not in the head. But it does have an effect on my peace of mind when I hear a situation that I deem to be unjustified, unfair. The visceral response is, I got to do something. Now that righteous response, whatever that response is, to me it's a righteous response, right? I may be unjustified in my response. I may be unwarranted in the conclusions that I've reached. I may be out of the ballpark in terms of the factual situation. But the point is that visceral response is what determines my immediate sense of beingness. So let's look at the family. The family here, for instance, the mother or the father or the sisters, brothers, the nieces, nephews, they have lost a loved one. They've lost a loved one in a continuing series of unarmed black people being, from their perspective, slaughtered by the police. And, as a white man sitting 2,000 or 1,500 miles away from Louisville, Kentucky, I feel threatened. I feel threatened by the fact that this seeming inappropriate response from the police. Now, see, I'm making a judgment, but that's what we do, right? It's very difficult in the moment for us to not come to a conclusion. And the point here is not to establish the correctness or the incorrectness of that late night smash down the door raid. The point is, how do we address it, and can we be aware of our response to that situation? Because our response to that situation is going to control our next step. It's going to control our next thought. It's going to establish a cascade of thoughts and feelings that are going to go down this particular ravine right? On the mountain, we have a rain shower, and so this rain shower are the facts that we think we know, and that visceral response is going to be the director of where that rain flows and where those thoughts cascade. And those thought cascade in our righteous indignation, our righteous response, could lead us to write letters. It could lead us to make phone calls. It could lead us onto the streets. It could lead us to pick up a gun. It could lead us in any number of responses, depending upon my frame of mind, depending upon my modus operandi in the circumstances of the world. And I'm using this particular example to point out that every situation where we establish our judgment and we establish our righteous response and we cultivate our righteous indignation affects our peace of mind. And I'm not saying that it is inappropriate to respond. I'm not saying it's inappropriate to take action based upon the assessments that you've made about a situation. It is really our responsibility to do that if we feel called. But the point is that how we address that, how we engage that righteous action, whatever we've determined to be, can have detrimental effects. Can have detrimental effects if the response is based on fear. Can have detrimental effects if the response is based upon unfettered emotion. Emotion's good. Unfettered emotions can be destructive. So how do we address that? How does the family address that? Given the history of 400 years of suppression of blacks in this country, and Latinos, Irish, Jews, anything but Northern European seems to have had an experience of suppression or oppression in this country. How do we heal that? How do we live up to the promises that were made by our founding fathers of equality and justice and freedom? How do we heal this? Because we are in a time where there are two distinct sides to almost every argument. And those distinct sides have been given colors of blue and red. And there are some that are trying to bring blues and reds together to make purples, which wonderful, But in the meantime, we are probably in leaning one color or the other. We might be a light pink or we might be a sky blue, but most of us have chosen a side, and that split in our society, the sidedness of our society, is very dangerous. We're encountering I'm not sure. Okay, there we go. We are encountering a period here where there is opportunity for great civil unrest, and it's important for us to get in the habit of doing a body check to see how we are responding to circumstances and to determine whether or not we have already chosen a side, to determine whether or not we are ready to respond with righteous indignation and righteous counteraction to any opposed, any offense. Well, let me share with you a passage you're probably familiar with, but I'm going to share it with you anyway, rather than just call for it from In John, let me hide this response. Okay. In John 8, verses 2 to 12, early in the morning, Jesus came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and making her stand before all of them, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. What do you say?" And they said this to test him, so that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. Nobody knows what he wrote, but he was doodling on the ground. And when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And once again he bent down and wrote on the ground. And when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the elders, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" And she said, "No one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on do not sin again." Now one might respond to this with with something like, "Well, I don't sin. It's been a long time since I've sinned. It's not in my nature to sin. I'm not that kind of person." Well, let's take a look again at the definition of sin. One definition of sin is a granddaughter that comes in during the middle of our webcast and says, "Grandpa, give me a hug." Okay, there's your hug. Let's talk later, okay?
Grandpa,
What?
I really want more orange
You. Well, we'll talk about it later, okay?
Okay.
I'll see you later. Close the door, please.
How beautiful.
Okay, all right. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Well, yeah, you too. Oh, I know. Go. Go. Close the door, please. Sometimes it's difficult to keep our concentration in this house. Doors closed, please. Mackenzie, please close the door.
I missed the mark on those directions. Oh, cute.
Well, we'll have to discipline her later for her sin. So let's take a look at the definition of sin. Sin is actually from the Hebrew Scripture. Sin is a term that is in the Greek a reference to missing the mark, to not being accurate in your action. And there is some interpretation that it is unripe. It is not yet in fruit. Well, sin in this context is when Jesus says, "Who among you is without error? Who among you have not missed the mark in your past? Who among you is perfect in what you have done?" That passage is one that offers us an opportunity to be open to another perspective. Being open to another perspective on any given situation is an important part of our practice. It's an important part of our releasing the energy that we have invested in our righteous indignation. Because when we are able to release the energy that we have invested in our righteous indignation, it allows us to bring peace. It allows us to come back into that sense of balance, groundedness. It allows us to be ready to be more appropriate in our response. Now, we may still be energized to write letters. We may still be energized to go out on the street. We may still be energized to pick up arms. But notice that if we do that, it's unlikely that we are coming into our response in peace. This is not about establishing what is right or wrong. This is about regaining our centeredness so that we are able to respond effectively. One could say that the riots that are occurring in various locations around the country are inappropriate. But is that a judgment in and of itself? Is that a response that is based upon fact, or is it based upon our righteous indignation? Regardless of what side of the issue you're on, the question is, are you able to respond in peace? Respond from the heart. Respond in the awareness of the presence of God's unlimited love, unconditional unlimited love. Are we able to, in our spiritedness, are we able to respond to the human condition from a sense of divinity? If we are able to do that, then we are empowered. We are empowered to be responsive appropriately. Let me share with you a passage from The Secrets of a Bulletproof Spirit, which is the book that we're using for our study. If you want to tap into your bulletproof potential, you need to learn a new way of seeing the people or things that you can't forgive so that you can stop poisoning yourself. Henry David Thoreau hits the nail on the head when he writes, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." And let me emphasize that what you see is not just through the eyes, but it's through the heart. Our consciousness is receiving input of all kinds, oral input and visual input and tactile input. We're having a sense response to whatever is happening before us. We cannot eliminate that, nor do we want to, because that sense response brings us into the moment. It allows us to recenter here and now, and it's in the recentering of here and now that we are thus able to be appropriately responsive. So, as we allow ourselves to be more centered in our response, we will be more effective. And if we're more effective, in the sense that we're more effective, we will have a greater opportunity to affect what is happening that we seem to be inappropriate. So it's up to us. It's a decision that we need to make. And once we are attuned to this practice of forgiveness and giving love to the moment, allowing God's unconditional love to move through us, that energy of unconditional love will illuminate our moment, and we will see differently. We will feel differently. We will approach the circumstances differently. So in the case of Breonna Taylor, in the case of in all of those circumstances we see in our lives, whether they be political or they be law enforcement related or they be our personal relations, how many times is our peace upset because of what someone has said to us or said about us, or actions that they have taken that have seemed to be detrimental in terms of our own personal best interest? If we're able to respond in love, we will be able to see the circumstances differently, and we will be empowered to be more effective in our response. And maybe our response is going to be just as it would have been had we not seen with new eyes. But the likelihood of that is very low. The likelihood is that we're going to open ourselves up to a different perspective. We're going to, if you will, look from a different standpoint, and we're going to sense that this is the most appropriate at this point in time, given what I know, and I'm responding from love. So if I'm responding from love, then the chances are very good that I'm not going to be causing harm to anyone, particularly myself. We'll have our meditation. As we come into our meditation, let us come in with this awareness that we are here immersed in the realm of God, in the ocean of unconditional love. All we need to do is to wake up to this reality. There is nowhere that this unconditional love is not. It is all around us if we allow ourselves to be the conduit and expression of that unconditional love. Our practice as spiritual beings, as children of the Most High, as the representatives of the divine in this moment, our practice is to be aware of this energy of God. He who abides in God abides in love. And choosing to abide in unconditional love is choosing to rest in the heart of God. It's not easy. That's why the practice is necessary. And so let us practice right now. My 4-year-old granddaughter comes into the room. I am blessed. Perhaps some of you were blessed as well. But how can I respond to her intrusion with anything but a hug? How can I experience that in any way but, oh my God, oh my love? So we come back to some experience we've had in the past of that sense of unconditional love, and we remember it. We become a member of God once more. We breathe in and we breathe out. We feel that love fill us, overflow from us. And we open ourselves to release that flow of unconditional love indiscriminately, without consideration of the effects, without consideration of the conditions, without consideration of the history, nor the future. We allow that love to flow through us, touching each and every circumstance, each and every player, each and every condition that we encounter. We keep our eyes wide open. We allow ourselves to make assessments and responses. But we do it in love. We do it with peace. We do it with empowerment, that we are indeed the masters of our own experience. We are indeed the thoughts. We are the tongue. We are the feet. We are the hands of God in this moment. We are allowing ourselves to be the expression of God's holy energy. right here, right now. And that feeling sense that we are having about this experience right now, this momentary experience, is one that we can remember, we can recall, and we can practice. So that when that adverse circumstance arises, when that unwarranted attack occurs, when that unloving response that comes towards us from out there, we can say, my response is love. My response is peace. Breathing in and breathing out, we come back to this time and space. We come back with a renewed enthusiasm for being God's messenger on this planet. We are the children of the Most High. We are the vessels of God's love. And we are that which irrigates this parched, hate-filled, fear-filled land. We are the water bearers. We are the living water that offers refreshment to a fearful world. And so it is. Let me share with you Karen Taylor Good. She's a new favorite of mine. Whoops, that didn't. Oh.
So what do you do when?
Yeah, come on. We're not going to do this. No, we're not going to do this. I'm telling
out.
you, we're not going to. Okay.
She sits alone in a corner of the lunchroom. They call her names when they walk by. She acts like she doesn't care, but there's so much pain in there. She holds it back so they won't see her cry. Could we be kinder, a little blinder to the differences that get in our way? 'Cause when we're kinder, that's God's reminder that in His eyes we're really all the same. He's the one nobody wants on their team, 'cause he's so different from the rest. And they tease him every day. They call him freak, they call him gay. Do they feel more by making him feel less? Could we be kinder, a little blinder to the differences that get in our way? 'Cause when we're kinder, that's God's reminder that in His eyes we're really all the same. An open heart, an open hand. we really are the same. Could we be kinder?
Amazing.
So,
This is a song that completely changed my life.
hang on.
There I was in Nashville.
Hang on. I will master this. I will master this. How y'all feeling?
Beautiful song.
Yeah. If you would like to make a contribution to this ministry, you can go to the chat box. There is a reference to our ministry's donation page. If you would like to have a call, a conversation, a counseling, a prayer one-on-one, please feel free to give me a call. My phone number is there in the chat box as well. And if I'm awake and available, I'll answer the call. So, whether it's 10 o'clock at night or, it won't be 7 o'clock in the morning. I won't be available then. But give me a call, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can if I'm not available. So, with that, Maestro, if you would please, let's have our closing benediction. And our prayer of protection together, please, cacophonously. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Yes! And so it is.